What is up, guys? Delboy here. So Anthony Yarde's next opponent has been named as the former super middleweight world title challenger Nikola Sjekloca. This fight will take place on the 9th of December, and it takes place on Frank Warren's Copperbox show that also features James DeGale and Lee Selby. So Nikola Sjekloca, this fight is a step up when you compare it to Anthony Yarde's last 13 opponents. It is a step up. Is it the name we want to see? Not particularly. Will he offer much resistance? Yes and no, in my opinion. I'll get onto that later. But in reality, it is a step up. I feel Anthony Yarde's first 13 opponents have been actual cannon fodder. Nobody came to win. Nobody came with any real skills. Nobody came with any sort of survival skills or defensive ability. Like if you're gonna fight journeymen, at least fight journeymen who are capable of surviving, you know. But yeah, Yarde's first 13 opponents have been awful. And again, like I mentioned before, if Yarde wants to take it slow, I've got no issue with it. My only issue was the fact that he was talking so much. He was talking about Frank Buglioni, but you know, making out like he's above fighting Hosea Burton. Well, regardless if Hosea Burton lost or not, he still beat better guys than you, you know. Beating somebody like Miles Shinkwin is probably better than anything on Yarde's resume, in my opinion. You know, I mean, the reality is Hosea Burton at that point fought at a higher level with mixed results, but he fought at a higher level. So I didn't like how Yarde was trying to get above that fight. It wasn't a good look, you know, trying to go around the eliminator, which is pretty much common practice in all sanctioning bodies, whether it's a British Boxing Board of Control or world titles. You know, you've got to fight eliminators, and the fact they tried to get around that by making out like they was this proven fighter was a bit ridiculous to me. But regardless of that, I think this is a step up. Nikola Sjekloca is a guy who has a lot of experience. He has a record of 32 wins, 4 defeats, 1 draw, 11 of those 32 wins coming by way of stoppage. But the interesting thing is, nobody has ever stopped Nikola Sjekloca. He has got a very good chin, and the guys to beat him are as followed. He lost to Sakio Bika back in 2013, unanimous decision. He then fought Arthur Abraham in 2014 for the WBO super middleweight title. He lost that fight by a unanimous decision. He also fought Callum Smith in 2014 when Callum Smith was on the come up, and Callum Smith won a unanimous decision, pretty much won every single round. He also lost to Tyrone Zoig in 2015 by a unanimous decision. And his last fight, he fought Robert Stieglitz for the European light heavyweight title, and he drew that fight. So he's coming into this fight with a decent result because a lot of people felt that Stieglitz would win that fight. I didn't really think Sjekloca would get anything out of that fight, but he got a draw against Stieglitz, who is a former champion at super middleweight. And the other sort of notable win on his resume is he beat Hadil Mohammadi, and he also beat Koren Givor back in 2011. But apart from that, he's not really beat anybody. But it's still a step up. And if you've seen Nikola Sjekloca before, he's an awkward fighter. He's 6'1", so he's going to be the taller man, and he is a defensively sound fighter. He doesn't really give too much away. He likes to keep it at range, but he's low output, and sometimes he is too negative. He likes to fight on the back foot, pop a jab, not a hard jab, it's like a nuisance jab, and he'll try and pick up points. And when he feels the power, like he did against Callum Smith and Arthur Abraham, he kind of goes into a shell, but he's very hard to stop. And that's why I like this fight, because I feel that he is going to feel Anthony Yarde's power quite early. And it's going to be interesting from that point, when he goes into his shell, how does Yarde look in trying to take him out? Because although this isn't the same as Sjekloca, he's still a tough guy, you know. He is 39, but he's still tough. It's going to be interesting to see how Yarde deals with that. If Yarde blows him out, that's impressive. But if sort of Nikola Sjekloca gets on his bike and is negative, that'll tell us a lot about Anthony Yarde's sort of ability to cut off a ring, because I'm not so sure about that yet from Anthony Yarde. to me, I've seen Yarde fight before, obviously, and against Nemes Patti, I felt like he was following him around the ring too much. Instead of sort of cutting it off, he was just sort of following him in straight lines. And against Sjekloca, yeah, eventually you're going to catch up to him, but you might look bad in the process. You're not going to lose rounds, but he can make you look bad. That's why I feel this fight is interesting and beneficial, because I think potentially Yarde could gain some real experience here in how to deal with a mover and how to cut the ring off and things that work and things that don't work. He can test some things in there against Sjekloca. The only thing for Nikola Sjekloca, he's not a puncher, so has he got anything to keep Yarde off of him? I'm not so sure. But to me, the interesting dynamic here is the fact that, to me, Sjekloca is a spoiler at heart. That's what he does when he's in a fight he can't win. He doesn't really try and trade it out and get a win and get a knockout, or he doesn't try and box aggressively. He doesn't even try to really outbox you. It looks like he just tries to kind of survive and make you look bad, really. And that's going to be interesting to see how Yarde deals with that. I expect Yarde to win because ultimately Sjekloca is 39. He's been in some tough fights already, and I just can't see him doing anything here. If he had power, it would be it would be interesting, because he does land the odd sort of snappy right hand counter here and there. He can do that, but there's no sort of power on it. And Yarde does come straight forward with no head movement. So if he had power, it would be really interesting. But the fact that he's got no pop kind of indicates that Yarde should win this fight, to be quite honest. But yeah, decent fight. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how Yarde looks. What do you guys think? Peace.